right? So we have to be able to manufacture almost the conditions in the other person's head to get them to move from crude emotions to more, nurturing emotions so they can learn. And that's the job of the leader, to be able to create the conditions for people to learn.
That's fascinating. And I think, would it be a fair summary to say you're trying to get them out of, say, their primitive part of their brain into their more human part, the advanced part of the brain?
Yeah. The primitive part of the brain is the limbic system, or the ape brain, and in there's our old friend, the amygdala.
I was just going to ask you about that. Could you, because people would have heard that word 2 or 3 minutes ago and probably going, what the hell is an amygdala? So could you give us a little bit on that?
Okay, well, look, at the way we're wired is this. We have an old brain in it, which is an emotional brain, and everything that comes through our senses has to go to a part of our brain called the thalamus first, which is almost like a relay station. And then next to the thalamus is the amygdala. And the amygdala really is the security guard, right? The security guard, it does what a bouncer does on the door. It lets people in, it throws people out, it does whatever it does.
We've all had that experience growing up, yeah.
Well, yeah. Being the bouncer or being bounced.
Both.
Okay. So anyway, the way the security guard works, or the amygdala works, when it's fully triggered, it has only 3 modes it can work on, which is fight, flight, or freeze. And when these modes are triggered, then the emotional brain, it more or less says, okay, I'm in charge here. And the emotional brain is the limbic brain. It's an old piece of kit that's in everybody. It's a survival instinct. But above that is the neocortex, or the thinking brain. And so the thinking brain has different functions like logic, creativity, imagination, and has this frontal part, this prefrontal cortex, that allows us to think contextually. Now, the problem with the emotional brain is that it doesn't want a big, long analysis of what's going on. It needs a quick and dirty answer if it feels it's threatened. So it switches off the frontal cortex.
Okay.
It switches off the ability to think contextually, which is the functional part that allows us to access our higher intelligence as human beings. So, and that's a survival instinct. But this is getting triggered by stuff that's coming in that doesn't really necessitate a full emotional hijack. Right? And this is the thing that plagues people in sports, or plagues people in business, trying to get teams working together. It plagues us in our own personal relationships, because what's happening is we're being triggered by old stuff, and it's damaging our ability to connect to the people that we care most about. So this stuff is happening, and what I just simply do is I spell it out really straightforward to people, and I give people more or less a toolbox. Like going back to the construction thing, you had the tools, you had a hammer, you had a chisel, you had a saw, east wing hammer, lump hammer mostly. But yeah, whatever tool you had, you used it. So I give people a toolbox to be able to understand how their heads work. And it's very simple. You just sit down with someone, you ask them how their head works, and they say, I have no fucking clue. I don't
That's probably
know.
the answer you get every single
I don't
time.
know. And let's have a look at, okay, so let's say people say or do things or they perform in a certain way, and say, well, what happens then before that happens? And sure, you probe or you push people a little bit and say, well, you probably think, do you? And it's great, you think, yeah, wonderful. Now, there's different qualities to thinking, right? Like we have this imagination that's all very good at coming up with creative solutions, but the imagination running the wrong way brings us into anxiety, worry, and stress. And that causes depression, as we all know. So we have this bloody brain, and no one is teaching anybody how it works in really simple terms. So, okay, so we have what we say and do that leads to our results. Below that, we have thinking, and there's different qualities of that. Now, what happens before you think? People say, they don't know. They haven't a clue. And I say, it's nothing to do with emotions, is it? I say, well done. It's bloody emotions, isn't it? And then I'll say, emotions then fuel. The quality of your emotions fuel the quality of your thinking.
If you enjoyed this clip, you can catch the full episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.